this is Katerina from the Evolution of Stitches. Welcome to my channel. In this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to wind this hank into a ball in order to be able to crochet with it. Of course, there are several ways to do it. Your best option is to have a yarn winder. Of course, this is not always the case, so your next best option will be to ask a friend or someone from your household for help. So, the very first thing you need to do is to take away this label gently. Maybe you would like to keep the label because there are important information on it. So if you are super organized, you can keep this label with a strand of yarn and keep track of the projects. And then the second thing you need to do is to open this hank. You should do it gently and create a big loop of yarn like this. If you look very carefully, you will see that there are some small knots around this hank. These small knots keep the yarn apart in order not to get tangled, and what you should do is to cut them off. The knots differ from one hank to the other. In some hanks there are 2 or 3. It depends on the manufacturer. So before I do that, I will show you how to place the yarn in order to be able to wind it. So, if there is someone around who is willing to help you, what they should do is to place their hands like this, and in this way you will be able to wind your yarn. But if there is no one around, I will show you several ways that you can wind your yarn all by yourself using objects that you can find in your house. So now what you should look for is an object that would substitute the swift or the winder. This can be anything as long as its width is about the same as the loop of yarn. For example, you can use a chair or a stool and a lot of other things. Let me show you. So I have placed my yarn around the chair, and in this way I will be able to wind it. I can also use the chair upside down. Let me show you again. Here is another way to do it, as you can see. You can also use a stool like this. Just please try to find an object that is as wide as the loop of yarn that you are going to wind. For this tutorial I am going to use this plastic drying rack because it is about the same width as my hank. So I have placed my hank of yarn around my drying rack, and the next thing that I am going to do is to use this empty roll of paper in order to wind my yarn around it. First, I will need to prepare it a little bit. If you don't have a roll of paper, you can cut a square of cardboard and use that one. The next step before I start winding my yarn is to grab this tube and prepare it for my winding. What I am going to do is to cut a slit on one side, and on exactly the opposite side I am going to cut another slit. And now I am ready to prepare my yarn for winding. My next step will be to find all these tiny knots and cut them. As I said, there are cases where you can find 3 or 4 of these knots. In some other cases you find only 2. You look for the other knots, and now you are ready to start winding the yarn. So I have only found 1 knot on my yarn, and another good idea is to try to stretch the yarn so you'll see if it's tangled. And now I am going to take this tail and start winding it into my tube. So I have the tube on my hands, and I'm going to grab the tail that goes to my hang, which is on the drying rack. And what I am going to do is leave a long tail, and then I am going to insert my yarn into these slits of the tube, and then I am just going to start wrapping the yarn around the center of the tube, like this. After you have wrapped your yarn around in the middle for a few times, then you will start changing the direction of the wrapping, and this is because you would like your ball, let's say, to have a nicer look. So you do it like this. You don't need to stretch the yarn, because if you don't stretch it, when you start crocheting, it will unravel more easily. Now I've changed the direction, so you kind of create a crisscross effect. So you do it like this. Again, after a few wraps on one direction, you change the direction. If you are a perfectionist, you can count the number of wraps, but this is not really necessary. When you feel that you need to change direction, you just do it. And you continue in this way until you have finished wrapping all the yarn. So I'll continue wrapping my yarn in this way. I like this job. I find it very relaxing. And this is the way I will proceed. So now I can show you how to untangle the yarn. Just don't try hard on it. So I am going to continue in this way until I have finished all the hang. But I'm not going to finish winding all my yarn because I would like to show you another easy peasy method with which you don't need anything. You just need to use your knees. So please continue a little bit and I will show you then how to wind the yarn into a ball by using your knees only. And your hands, of course. And another cool way is just place the yarn around your knees like this and wind your yarn as you would normally do if you used a winder or another object. This is a very cool way to do it because you can do it and watch TV or listen to music. You have to have your knees open and to the width of the yarn, and that's it. So let's continue wrapping our yarn like this. Another thing you should remember is that you can always stop winding your hang. You just need to make sure that these strands of yarn don't get tangled. What you can do is use a scrap yarn and tie your hang from here, or you can just lay it flat on a surface and continue later. And in this way, we wind our hang without using any equipment. Please let me finish winding my hang and I will meet you then to tell you what to do next. So I have finished winding my yarn. This is my ball. And now what I do is that I take this tail. This is from where you can start knitting or crocheting. This is one way. If you don't plan on using the ball of yarn right away, I like to secure this tail by tucking it under one of these strands. I use a hook because in this way it's easier to do it. And now, as I said, one way to use your ball of yarn is crocheting from this end. Of course, when you start crocheting, you will need to tuck out your tail again, like this. Let me do it again now. So I grab the tail and I pull it through the yarn. If you prefer a center pull, what you do is you take this yarn, which we have placed between the slits of the tube. We pull it out from one side, so I have one tail here. I take it out from the other slit, and also what I can do is to push down this ball of yarn like this, as you can see, and I can remove my tube by sliding it out of the yarn. And in this way I have a center pull ball of yarn, and I can work on my projects using this tail. So it's up to you which way you would like to use your ball of yarn. So this is how you can wind a ball of yarn without any equipment. I hope you liked my tutorial. If you did, leave a thumbs up and some subscribe to my channel. What I'm going to do with this cotton yarn is to crochet a beautiful summer top. So please stay tuned in order to watch my next tutorial. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.